Today we're going to be looking at two different types of flats and how to make them in scale. First, we're going to look at a traditional Broadway flat. If you notice, on the Broadway flat, we have four sides, but the popsicle sticks are laid flat. If this were a life-size flat, these boards would just be laid on their side. In a Hollywood flat, you'll notice that the boards are stuck on end, creating a much deeper box. In today's lesson, we're going to be talking about the differences between these two flats, and then we are going to be creating them using popsicle sticks, razor blade or a hobby knife, a scale ruler, scissors, and part of a cardboard box. This one was from Fruit by the Foot, or you could use a cereal box. All right, let's talk for a moment about the parts of a flat. So they're called flats obviously because they're flat. These are fake walls used in theater and movie productions to produce a set on a much cheaper scale than building the real thing. They are comprised of wood and either a fabric covering or a wooden covering. In this case, it's just a box covering. Has these two long pieces on either side. Those are called the stiles. Then it has these shorter pieces on each end, and those are called the rails. The piece in the middle that supports and helps you to square it up is called the toggle. Then we have the corner brackets. We have the keystones, which are the ones that connect this little corner piece here that helps to make the flat square. And those are the parts of a flat. Here we have a Hollywood flat. Again, the two longer pieces are called stiles. The two pieces on the ends are called rails. And the one in the middle is called the toggle. You'll notice that this flat does not have the corner brackets or the keystones. Let's start by making a Broadway flat. I'm going to start by taking a couple of my popsicle sticks. The dimensions that we are building today are in 1/2 inch scale. So if you are using your scale ruler, you will find the side that starts with 1/2. If you're using a traditional ruler, 12-inch ruler, you will use the 1/2 inch increments to represent a foot. I'm going to take my scale ruler and I'm going to measure the two long stiles for my Hollywood flat. I place it here along the 0, and then I measure to where it says 8, and I will make a mark. Now that I have my mark, I will use scissors to trim the end as square as possible. And I will repeat for the second stile. Now, the flat that we're making is 8 feet tall and 4 feet wide. So on my scale ruler, you'll see that I have it set up at 4 feet wide. What I need to do is figure out the distance between the two so that my rails and toggle can be placed in the middle. To do this, I'm going to use my scale ruler. I've set up my two stiles at the outside edges at 4 feet apart, according to my 1/2 inch scale. Now I'm going to move my scale ruler to the 2. That's about as close. So if I measure from I notice that's between the 2 and the 3 feet increments on my scale ruler. Because of that, I'll go to the 2 and figure out how much is needed here in extra. So I'll count those inches out. So I see that it is right about here on my ruler. You can see that mark there. If not, I'll put it in there. So now I'm going to measure my next popsicle stick to that length. I will start where I put my mark on my ruler, so I know it's correct, and then I will mark off and cut. Remember, when you're cutting the popsicle sticks, try to make it as square as possible. If you have any angle at all, it'll throw off the finished flat. Oh, this may happen from time to time depending on your popsicle sticks where it will break in half. That's okay. I'm actually going to save these for my corner brackets. And let's try it again. I have 1, and I will need 2 more. To get around the breakage, I'm going to use my hobby knife. And to do this, I'm going to put it on the wood, push down and score it, and then drag it across slowly until it cuts through. Okay, about halfway through. Now I can use my scissors, and it should not break apart. Okay, there we go. We have our pieces. What we're going to create are the corner brackets. Here I have the same length as my rails and my toggle because it broke in half by accident, but I actually needed that to be in that size. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a 45-degree angle to both ends of this piece using my hobby knife. Oh, broke my blade. You'll notice that when I made the 45 degrees on there, they're not 100% accurate. I'll go back and redo this one. But they will go in here like so. Okay? If you don't have your hobby knife, that's okay. Since mine broke, I'll just quickly do it with my scissors. Okay, make sure that the angles are pointing in towards each other or down towards each other. That way when you put it in, it will be correct. Okay, so it looks like I may have miscut just a little bit. That's okay. So now I have some sandpaper here, and we are going to sand off the edges, make them smooth to all of our pieces. There you have it. There's all the pieces for our Broadway flat. Now we are going to create all of the keystones and corner brackets for our Broadway flat. Unlike a Hollywood flat, there's not a lot of material to screw our pieces of wood together, so we apply a second layer of wood on top and staple them together. I have pre-cut a piece of my box, and if you notice, it is a foot wide according to the half-inch scale. Okay, that's just so that it covers the majority of my corner and truly ties everything together. All right, so with this piece of board that's 1 foot wide, I'm going to cut off just some triangles. So I know that I want them to be even, so I'm going to measure them off to be about 1 foot. And I will need 2 of those. Line up on my mat to help make sure I'm square. One. 2. I'm going to cut diagonally across to create the actual corner bracket. There we go. Now I'm going to cut the keystones. I'm not using any measurement for this, I'm just eyeballing, and normally when I make a flat for real, I just eyeball the piece. Now, if you have fatter fingers than I do, I highly recommend getting a pair of tweezers to help you manipulate these pieces. Okay, there. Now we have all of our pieces cut out for our Broadway flat. Now it's time to assemble. I'm using Gorilla Super Glue. You can use any kind of glue you would like. Regular school glue would work as well, just has a longer dry time. When I do this, I like to work in sections. So I'm actually going to clear everything off of the flat and begin with just gluing the wooden pieces together. If you're using school glue, it may actually be beneficial for you just to glue the pieces on top. Remember, a little glue goes a long way. Then I'm going to make sure I glue the color side of my box to the corner, or the corner bracket. At this point, when you're building a traditional Broadway flat, you would measure from corner to corner, ensuring that you have the same distance on both corner to corners. Here we are at 9, and here we are at 9. What that measurement shows you is that your flat is square, perfectly perpendicular, not cockeyed one way or the other. And if that is the case, now is the time to fix that. All right, once you have all of your pieces glued together and they're dry, it's time to create the covering. Now, many flats are covered with fabric or a muslin, especially in the theater to make them lightweight. Sometimes they're covered with traditional drywall, like in most Hollywood sets. And in our case, we're using a piece of box to cover ours. In my theater, I typically cover it with a piece of 1/4-inch wood, either hardboard or a luan. Let's cut our box. Now, if we have done our job correctly, this flat should measure 4 feet by 8 feet. Okay? To simplify things, I could draw my shape on the box and cut it out and glue it on. But what I'm going to do to ensure a correct fit is place it on the box. I have 2 straight edges on here, or close to 2 straight edges on here now. And I'm going to use my knife, and I'm going to just cut it out so it's the exact right size. When I'm building a full-size flat, Broadway flat, once I have applied my wood to the top surface, I will normally run what is called a trim router around the edges to ensure that it is the exact size of my flat. Normally, dimensional lumber comes fairly accurate. The trim router is particularly important when you're creating a flat of an odd size. Okay, now that I have my cover cut out, I'm going to apply it to the flat. In the normal case, this would be stapled on. If it's muslin or a fabric, it's stapled along the outside edges. If it's dimensional lumber, like a piece of plywood or some hardboard, it gets stapled and glued to the top. Okay, there we have it. We have our Broadway style flat. What I like to do then, just to make it a little more accurate, is take a pen and draw where I would have stapled my pieces on. Here we go. And there's a Broadway flat. The next flat we're going to be building today is our Hollywood flat. The Hollywood flat again has the pieces set up on edge, and they are nailed through the sides of the long piece. So if I have a piece like this and it connects to a piece like this, the nails get run through this edge into the other piece. And we usually use glue and staples to do that. So let's go ahead and build one of those. Again, we're using the 1/2-inch scale. A couple pieces here I'll use. And I need 2 more longer pieces. So first up, I'm going to trim the edge of my popsicle stick to get a nice flat edge. Measure it to the 8-foot mark. Trim. And the next one. The normal dimensional lumber you'll be using for this is a 1x2, which actually measures 3/4 by 1.5 inches, 1 3/4 inches. Okay, and then we'll put in, so we have our stiles, now we need our rails. So for this piece, they're on edge. So I'm not going to be measuring to get my width like this. I'm going to be doing it on edge. So I need to find out the width of two of these together and subtract that from my total dimension of 4 feet. So I'm holding it using my ruler and I go, oh, it is about 1/4 of that dimension there. So it's 1/4 of that. So it's 4 feet minus that 1/4. Okay? So there's 4 feet. Let me show you up here. 4 feet. And I'm going to minus that 1/4 from that 4 feet. Turn my piece around. And minus 1/4. So that's my original mark. Here's my new mark. That's the length I'm going to cut. So I'm going to cut there. I'm going to score it with my knife so I don't get any breakage this time. And to speed things along, I'm going to make all my other cuts that same length. Use my one that I just made, mark my piece, right on the edge, as close to that edge as possible. Notice that my pen does not write exactly there, so I'm going to cut to the inside of that line. So I'm not going to cut on the line, I'm going to cut to the inside edge of that line. Score it. And then cut it. That scoring just helps me prevent it from breaking. Okay, got 2 pieces. Need 1 more. Inside edge of that line, leaving the line on the piece I'm not using. Cut. Alright, there are my 2 rails and my toggle for the middle. These are being connected on ends, so there's a little bit less of the assembly process here. So I'm just going to show that to you now. I'm going to apply my super glue. And what I noticed when I was using my super glue earlier to do this, the wood would absorb the glue and not stick. So it took a little bit of time for it to get stuck. If you need to sand the edge a little bit, make sure they're flush so that it glues real well. And then the toggle. I'm using the lines on this mat to help me keep the flat square. Alright, for this one I'm going to show you how to measure and cut your flat out. So I'm going to use the cardboard as a nice straight edge there to know that's where I'm going to measure. Keep it so I'm not drawing some crazy shape on here. And I'm going to go from 0 to 8. Turn this. 0 to 4. 0 to 8 again. Again, trying to keep it as square as possible. And 0 to 4. Then I'm going to use my knife and cut that out. First step I like to do is cut it down to a manageable size. Half-inch scale platform. And then cut it to the correct
If you're building a
dimensions.
platform that is higher than 1 foot, you need to ensure that your legs are the length.
Scale ruler is metal. It's aluminum.
Anything
so it makes
over
a real nice cutting
18
surface.
inches
If you don't have that, find
on
something
a
else
standard
that you can
platform
cut a nice
needs to
straight
have
line.
cross braces to help support the legs. Thanks for watching today. I hope you enjoyed watching how we build a half-inch scale platform. Be sure you watch our next video all about how to make half-inch scale stairs. See you next time.
All right, our flat is dry. Now we're going to glue it to our covering. If this were muslin or fabric, again, you would wrap it around your flat and glue it to the edge. You would also add some staples. Again, if you're using dimensional lumber like plywood, you would also add staples to the top and add some glue to hold it in place. You'll measure corner to corner to ensure that your flat is square. Now is the best time to square up anything that might be out of alignment before you staple on the front cover. Again, if I have any overhang, I'll use a router and smooth the edges so that if I have to put it next to another flat, there's not any gaps. And there we go. We have our Hollywood flat. I hope you enjoyed our lesson today on Hollywood and Broadway flats. I hope that you learned how to make a scale model of those flats so that when we are able to be in the classroom or you're able to be in the shop, you're able to build your own full-scale Hollywood flat and Broadway flat. I'll see you next time. Hey, thanks for watching today. I hope you enjoyed our video. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell if you want to see future videos about how we make things for theater. Have a great day.